So I've got a series where I score each volume's fights to not only see how many fights we get per volume, but also to gauge the quality of the combat. And for Volume 8, I wasn't particularly inspired to make this video for a while, and that was for a good couple of reasons, one of which just being the fights themselves. I found it difficult to remember any actual fights that happened, and the ones I could recall, I wasn't sure if I should really consider them a fight. You see, something Rooster Teeth loves to do is have what I call not-quite fights, where either they cut away from the combat, the fight's one-sided where it's just killing an opponent who never gets to fight back, or end up having the characters just talk a lot rather than throw bows. If a battle ends before it feels like it really started, then it's a not quite, and I felt conflicted on how many of these encounters should I consider real combat, or just not quite fights. But now that a decent amount of time has passed and the wave of anger and disappointment that washed over me after finishing the volume has receded, I think I'm ready to brave Volume 8's fights. To explain the scoring system briefly, the length of the fight, the quality of the animation, the choreography demonstrated, all are considered when being judged. Elements like how well the song is used in the background, or creative uses for characters' abilities, can affect the score as well. However, I won't dock or give points over whether or not I personally like any given song, environment, character, etc. I'm trying to be objective. The lowest score available is 1/4 of a point, while the highest is 2 points. I go into each fight considering it a 1. A 1 is an acceptable, decent score. There's nothing wrong with receiving a 1. Depending on how the battle ensues, that score can raise or lower. Scores higher than 1 should be regarded like extra credit, where the battle goes above and beyond to be better than average. Lower than 1 means that the event was lacking in some way. I'll also be calculating a percentage score for the volume's fights, like how I've done with previous volumes here. Being able to give them a letter grade can help visualize the overall quality of the fights. Every time I make one of these videos, someone bitches about how they don't like my scoring system, and I don't care. Now let's go! The Hound attacks Oscar. 1/4. A rare, actually intimidating enemy with really impressive animation for its transformations. Unfortunately, the kids all become complete nimrods who just stand still and do nothing while the Hound blocks one of their friend's attacks while completely facing away from them, all compounded with weirdly slow dialogue and elongated transformations, totally strips the scene of any tension. Penny vs. Aesop's. 1/2. Fun use of teamwork and maiden powers throughout, distracting that Penny, despite now being a maiden and has been able to handle large groups of enemies before, now is too dumb to pay attention to more than one thing at a time. Interrupting the fight to watch the others talk was bad, really herky-jerky ending to the fight. Penny and Rainbow vs. Aesop's. 1/4. Disappointing lack of teamwork, and the camera refuses to stay focused on Harriet and Penny, who are actually fighting. Really short. Penny and Maria vs. Cinder, Emerald, and Neo. 3/4. The fight's only this long because the characters won't shut up. Extended not fight interrupting the action is pretty dumb. Penny's portion ends up being more of a chase sequence than a fight for no reason, and when combat actually does happen, the animation is really limp feeling. Despite technically being 6 minutes long, the scene ends up feeling like it's just wasting your time for most of it. Cinder vs. Rhodes. 1/4. Too fast animation and constant camera cutting makes the fight weird to follow and sucks the power out of any impact. Disappointing lack of utilization of interesting setting or use of abilities from either combatants. Incredibly short. Blake vs. Centaur. 1/4. Blake gives a monologue while moving slowly and refusing to actually try hitting the thing. Yang and Oscar vs. Salem. 1/2. Really cool move used by Yang, and the magic effects are nice. Unfortunately, the other 3 characters disappeared for no reason, and no one even tried to free Yang from Salem's hand goo, including Yang herself. Incredibly short. Yang's fast punch is the only thing making me consider this a real fight. Hazel vs. Salem. 3/4. Disappointing lack of tactic or imaginative attacks despite all the dust Hazel loads up on. Perhaps the most brutal fight, but keeps pausing to focus on other things. Again, very short. The Gang vs. Ironwood and Adults vs. Robots and Aesop's. 1/4. No teamwork, Dumbo one-at-a-time tactics, boring choreography and claustrophobic framing. Winter's one cool move doesn't save the fight's overall bad quality. Crow, Robin, and Marrow's moments are just seconds of wasted time. Weiss and Penny vs. Cinder. 1/4. Bad animation, weightless combat, mostly posing and talking. Winter vs. Ironwood. 1/4. The 2 wax poetics and then it cuts away abruptly. Actually good animation is wasted on a scene that prioritizes dialogue at a distance over providing an exciting fight. Winter vs. Cinder. 1/4. I didn't think a maiden fight could be worse than Raven fighting Cinder, but here we are. Maiden powers are only used to fly. Too fast animation makes combat feel limp, weirdly difficult to keep track of where the women are in relation to each other. Feels like they teleport around the map. Boring, wimpy conclusion of just a kick to end the fight. This is the final fight of the volume, and it's 30 seconds long. Final score. 12 fights, 4.5 points. 38%. Wow, I really didn't expect this. I mean, I knew I felt disappointed with the fights for the volume, but I didn't expect for literally all of them to score below a 1. Hell, of the 12 fights, 8 of them received my lowest score possible. I mean, this is unprecedented. This is the worst score any volume's received by a large margin, and I think the thing that's blowing me away so much is the fact that they were getting better. Volume 5 was pretty bad, but 6 and 7 saw a marked improvement in the fight quality. Hell, the gravity fight from last volume is one of my favorites from the series. And then this. It truly seemed like RT was improving, was working on giving us quality content, and then this. Basically, each fight is just seconds of action. The few that get over the 1 minute mark only manage to be so long by having elongated posing or cutting away mid-fight to a conversation elsewhere. There's also this pretty consistent thing where characters just don't try to win, Penny being too dumb to handle a crowd suddenly, Blake refusing to use her ninja abilities or semblance to attack the Grim, Yang and friends standing around with their thumbs up their asses as the Hound slowly walks around with Oscar. I felt like every time the characters drew their weapons, they lost all their brain cells along with it. Before we continue to dissect these 30-second disappointments, I think we should take a look at the not-quite fights of the volume. Now, I've mentioned before that not-quites aren't inherently bad. Tyrion's murder spree at the party was a not-quite, but it's still an exciting, engaging scene. Action is still engrossing, even if it's not explicit combat. They only really become an issue when they end up feeling more like time-wasters. Volume 5's finale is perhaps the most infamous example, as instead of watching any fights, we were stuck watching people talk as others fought off-screen. But Volume 7, Episode 10 also saw this happen, as the action ended up feeling like we were just missing out on seeing any real combat. So, with all that established, let's take a look at what Volume 8 has to offer. Jean and Ren kill sabers in one blow. The gang one-shot a pterodactyl. Jolly chases the Hound. Ruby fails to use her eyes. Weiss refuses to try and stop the Hound from running away. Willow saves Whitley and Weiss makes a wall. The Hound bodies Penny and Ruby uses her eyes to insta-win. Team Funky are just kids. Funky and the Aesops hit stuff. Penny's friends keep her from being hacked. Cinder kills some civilians. The girls do nothing while Cinder monologues, and then Neo one-shots Yang because apparently Yang has no aura now. Neo pushes Ruby off-screen so they don't have to animate a fight. Blake misses and joins the off-screen fight. Ruby and Neo are still fighting off-screen. Ironwood shoots his laser and then chit-chats. Penny and Cinder threaten to start fighting before Weiss interrupts. Blake and Penny pose. Harriet kicks Crow once. Ruby twirls her weapon a little bit. Neo bullies the staff away from Ruby. Ruby pushes Neo and gets electrocuted. Weiss takes some shots at Cinder. Jean, Penny, and Weiss line up just for Cinder to throw her swords and kill Penny in one hit. Muffled implied combat for the Schnees as Penny dies. Winter one-shots Ironwood. That's 26 not-quite fights. That's more than Volume 5 had. There are as many not-quites in episodes 13 and 14 as there were in the entirety of Volume 7. So let's talk about that. A lot of these not-quites end up happening around combat. Blake's in the middle of a fight while the Schnees are running around the house. So in theory, you could look at it like these are just one long action sequence. Except they'll also have talking head scenes sprinkled throughout as well, making it kinda just feel haphazard. The finale especially comes across as unfocused, constantly setting up fights but pushing them off-screen or ending them in one hit. Jean, Weiss, Blake, Ruby, and Neo were all present for the last episode, but we didn't actually get to see any of them fight. Perhaps the most disappointing one is the one where Penny dies. Unlike Pyrrha's death, or even Penny's first death, no cool fight to be had here. Instead, we have the kids square up, all ready to brawl, just for Cinder to one-shot Penny before the fight really begins. And fuck, even when they do fight in this show, it's 30 seconds of clashing swords together, or perfectly dodging without effort. The first fight of the volume doesn't happen until the end of episode 2. You have to wait through 2 not quites before a real fight gets to happen, and when it does, it's mostly just the kids standing around looking at the Hound. While I do like the use of some of these not quites, the chase sequence with the Hound was pretty neat, overall they just end up feeling like the same cheat they had used back in volume 5. We don't have time to animate anything with effort, so just have them stand. We don't know how to make RWBY's combat look good, so just don't show it. Did you notice that Ruby Rose is only in one on-screen fight for the whole volume? And it's one where she instantly falls off a ledge. She doesn't swing her weapon or shoot her gun once for it. That's bad. If your main character doesn't get to fight on screen in your show, then you are doing a bad job. It's no secret that RT sucks at figuring out how to make a character use anything other than fists or a sword. Ever since Monty passed away, the weapons have become basic, bland, boring bullshit. Because apparently they don't know how to have a person fight without just making them a meathead who swings stick or punch. It's why Nora only uses her rocket launcher to fly. It's why Ironwood wasn't allowed to fight with his guns in episode 12. It's why Maria's combat looks so rehearsed. Why the fuck haven't they hired a new fight choreographer? That's what Monty did. He was an amazing animator, but he also choreographed the fights. This is a show with trailers like this. We expect to see cool combat in this show. So why? RWBY has had no choreographer for 5 years now. Miles and Carrie have made it well known that they don't know how to handle fights. They don't know how to direct them. They do their best to avoid them each volume. Hire a fucking fight choreographer already. At least then, when they actually do fight, it's not shit like this. How about we take a second to look at some of the better fights we've seen in RWBY? The Gravity fight, the Train fight, the Nevermore fight. You know what all these have in common? They're fights. No running around, no cutting to other characters worrying, no mid-battle chit-chats, just fight scenes. And the important word there is scene. Not seconds, a scene dedicated to a cool combat showcase. These events have build-up, their conclusions are given weight. There was a flow to the battle, not just mindless weapon clashing. Let's get specific. In the Volume 2 train fight, the girls enter the first train car. Weiss gives Blake a weapon upgrade, and then they one by one get separated as their opponents are introduced. And as the pairs are established, the kids are still fighting, meaning we get a grasp on the different combatants. Yang's already missed an entire volley of punches towards Neo, who has landed multiple hits while keeping her calm demeanor. The White Fang lieutenant is slow and bulky, but still blocked a decent number of Weiss's blows, and Blake starts bodying Torchwick with her new dusted bullets. We then go into the second half of the scene understanding how in danger each team member is. They've established threat levels and some abilities for each enemy. As we go down the line, the girls seem more and more in control, more likely to win. So then when we go back to Weiss, who at first seems to have the upper hand, just to get outplayed by her lack of defense, it surprises you. But they were winning! It makes it feel like there are really stakes here, that the girls aren't guaranteed a victory, and that tension continues as Yang is still incapable of landing a hit on Neo. She needs to get saved by Raven, telling the audience that our heroes still have to learn and grow as fighters, but also that this mission may be more dangerous than they first assumed it would be. The three make it back to RWBY and kicked Roman in the head real hard, but this was a loss for them. They needed to run away, not because they didn't seem to try, but because they were simply outmatched. Our girls didn't get worse in order to lose these fights. They still fight at the same level we'd seen before, it's just that their opponents were better. And it's interesting because this is technically 3 fights interwoven together, but it all feels like one big encounter. It's because we aren't cutting away from one girl to then focus on the other 2 having a conversation, we're just cutting between 3 different fights. And this part's important. We cut away when there are natural pauses in action. Blake has Torchwick pinned, Yang takes a second to size up Neo before approaching again. We don't just wander away from the fights in the middle of the action. These battles are the important thing we need to focus on. They aren't background noise behind a monologue. This is what they want us to get to see. This is what's pushing the characters and story forward. 5 minutes of uninterrupted combat, because getting to see cool fight scenes like this is part of making an action anime. We want to watch the heroes get into sick battles. Now let's take a look at the final fight of Volume 8 again. After breaking Jean's sword, Cinder gets hit by an ice ball from off-screen. Winter floats in and Cinder charges her. The two then clash, literally. Winter only ever manages to get a hit on Cinder with her ice blasts. Swords only exist to hit them together, it seems. The ladies use multiple different types of attacks, swing swords, shoot ice, summon little birds, but the tactic is always the same. Hit straight on. Blake used a wide variety of dust types to do a bunch of different things to Torchwick, from confusing him to setting counterattacks. She did more than just swing forward. Same with the other girls. Weiss uses her glyphs to get around, to increase her speed. Yang tries everything she can to hit Neo, to no avail. Cinder and Winter can't think to do anything other than throw attack forward. And then, despite Winter seeming to have the upper hand, landing some blows and being literally above Cinder, we get a shot of Weiss and Jean trying to escape as the maidens continue to clash forward in the background, and then Cinder kicks her once and wins. Nothing signified this turn in the battle. Cinder didn't do anything different to gain the upper hand. She just kicks her once, in a shot that's so overloaded with Winter's snowy effects that it's hard to see what actually happens. And that's it. The battle's over now, I guess. The final blows on the train were given weight. Time slows down as Yang and Weiss take their losing hits. Yang gets a moment to ponder what she saw before moving forward. Blake gets a second to look over Weiss before running from the lieutenant. But for Volume 8, that fight didn't matter, apparently. It's not given any time to sit with the characters or viewer. Hell, Winter doesn't even seem to care that the encounter even happened. You could remove Cinder and Winter's battle from the episode and nothing would change. The fight only happened because one needed to happen. And the whole volume is like this. Like, I don't know what to say. I'm thoroughly disappointed in Rooster Teeth's level of quality here. You've been doing this for 8 years. This is the first time Cinder has entered combat with anyone from Team RWBY. It's the first time Salem has participated in a fight. You took a 2-month break in the middle of the volume. And this is what we're given? Truly nothing less than utter disrespect for your viewers.
I don't care about my haters, and if you want to fight me, then fight me.
Salem can't be killed.
Hello? Hey, what's up? I need your help. Can you come here? I can't. I'm buying clothes. All right, well, hurry up and come over here. I can't find them. What do you mean you can't find them? I can't find them. There's only soup. What do you mean there's only soup? It means there's only soup. Well, then get out of the soup aisle! All right, you don't have to shout at me. There's more soup. What do you mean there's more soup? There's just more soup. Go into the next aisle. There's still soup! Where are you right now? I'm at soup! What do you mean you're at soup? I mean I'm at soup! What store are you in? I'm at the soup store! Why are you buying clothes at the soup store? Fuck you!